Hi Will, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, we wanted to interview you because we found a deep connection between leadership and coaching. So we're going to start this interview. Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been coaching?
I've been coaching for about 6 years, starting roughly about this time, 2008.
Okay. And when did you know you wanted to be a coach?
Well, I've always in my entire life been a fan of football. And like most boys back home, all I wanted to do was play football. And when that became a reality that I wasn't going to make it as a player, I couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do in life. And so you go to careers fairs, people try and give you careers advice, but nothing would appeal like football would. And then one day, went to college and found a prospectus catalogue from a university, which in there it advertised a degree in football studies. And I did not realise this. I just picked one up, took it home to show my mum and say, yeah, look, I've been looking at universities. I just wanted the catalogue to make her think I've been looking at universities. She picks it up and she reads through it and finds this degree all about football. And I couldn't think of anything better. And that's when I realised there's a path into the game without being a player. You've still got the same competition, the same excitement, and you can go much more in depth and be in control of every aspect. And coaches do not lose it with age. You look at some of the best coaches, most successful coaches ever, they continue well into their 70s, and yet you have to stop playing at a top level when you're in your 30s. So this will keep you going for life.
Yeah. Can you tell us what are the differences between coaching abroad and back in your hometown?
It depends on which country you go to, and it depends on the level, but there's many different factors that you don't necessarily take into account. Things that are normal in one place which are not necessarily normal back home. For instance, until last year I'd never ever thought I'd coach beside a mosque and would have to worry about the prayers going off during my session. At that point it's so loud the players can't hear a word that you're saying. On top of that, you've got players who have to leave the session for 20 minutes to go and pray and then come back. That disrupts things, but that's their culture. You've got to adapt to that. We definitely do not have that problem at home. There's other things like the attitudes. Back home we get quite a lot of rain. I've noticed there's a lot of rain in Mexico, but we have a different attitude to it than some other countries do. If it rains in England, you only stop the game if the field is too wet for the ball to move. Whereas some parts of the United States, if they see a cloud, they cancel the game because the parents are so protective of their children. They don't want them to get pneumonia, colds, flu, and it's just a bit of rain. That's how we see it. Here, I've coached in games where we've had puddles on the field. You could essentially swim from one side of the field to the other, and they're not cancelling the game. And that's dangerous. But people are looking at me like I'm an idiot, and I'm thinking, well, you're all idiots. But that's just how they view the world. I mean, it's a very different application of the rules. Then you got the seriousness and the drive and the motivation of the players. For instance, in the US, where soccer is probably the fifth most watched sport on television, but it's the most participated in youth because it's cheap, because it's easy, they don't need tons of equipment, and they don't see it as dangerous. You get a lot of young kids who will play the game, but their parents don't understand it. So when you tell them to pass the ball, they'll pick it up with their hands and throw it to you. And you'll say, no, we use our feet here. And yet in other countries, that's not an issue because they know football is with the feet. And here, you've got a lot of people they're often late for things, which we don't have that really as a problem back home. If we say 10 o'clock, people are there at 10 o'clock. Here, it's when they feel like it. It's the attitude that everyone else will wait for me, rather than I need to be there for the team. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's very frustrating for me being from a different culture, trying to adapt to that and trying to manage that. Some of my colleagues will actually lie about the time so that their players are not late. They will add minutes to it in order to have people arriving on time. And on top of that, one of my own personal frustrations is that when people are late, they don't say sorry. It's not a big deal here to be late. And for us, it is. It's a massive display of disrespect to your coach, to your team, and even to yourself. If you're late, you've got to have a good reason. Traffic's not a good reason because there's traffic everywhere. If you make the same journey twice a week, every week, you know there's going to be traffic. Adjust. Yeah.
And in another aspect, is a leader different than a boss, and how?
In a lot of ways, a leader is different to a boss. If we were to give the example of war, you could imagine the leader is there fighting in the trenches, shoulder to shoulder with his men, whereas a boss is in a boardroom somewhere making the decisions that don't necessarily affect him. A leader is very much well respected and has a natural sense of authority that it comes from that respect, whereas a boss, it's more power than respect. You do what your boss tells you because you'll get in trouble if you don't, and therefore it's negative reinforcement. With a leader, it's more positive reinforcement. I'll do what the leader says because I know it's right, or I know that this is a direction, or I have trust, I have faith in the leader. This leader will often speak with confidence and will bring out confidence in others. Particularly, I think in a sense of football, a leader can inspire the players when they're underperforming, when they're playing against the odds, when it seems like, as we say back home, you're playing uphill, the wind is against you, the rain is against you, the referee underneath his shirt has one of their shirts. The leader will pick his players up emotionally, physically, and will say, right, we are in this together and we all give it our best together. Whereas a boss is much more instructive. The finger comes out and starts wagging. There's usually blame, whereas a leader has responsibility. A boss, in a sense, is responsible for the whole operation, but it's more of a authoritarian figure, whereas the leader is very much more, how to describe, a leader's more on level terms and yet is promoted from within, promoted by the people, almost chosen. And in a lot of ways, like if I'm coaching a team, I'm looking for a captain. I'm going to choose a captain because it's someone who I know can lead the team, someone with confidence, someone who's loud, someone who is passionate, someone who will give it their all and who will inspire these actions and these outcomes in their teammates.
And do you consider yourself a boss or a leader?
I think I'm very much a leader. I can't tell other people what to do without there being a reason for it. I've got to show them the way. I've got to have people understand what I'm trying to achieve. Whereas a boss is do this and don't question it. I'm very much this is the way because this is how, this is why, this is what we're going to do because of these reasons. This is what I've looked at, this is what I thought. A leader would also at times include some feedback, some thoughts, some input from those that are below. A leader is more open to suggestions, whereas a boss would perhaps become a bit hostile towards any suggestions, almost like it's a threat to their power. A leader looks very much towards the overall success of the group. And a good leader knows when to step back and let someone else take charge. If you recognize in yourself that this is not your area of expertise, but someone else can do a better job than you, let them take the stage. A leader can guide, a leader can show, and when you're trying to coach, when you're trying to, especially here in a new culture, you have to, as we say, lead by example, which means I want my players to do this, I have to do it too. If I want my players to be respectful, I have to show respect. If I want my players to be disciplined, I have to be disciplined. If I want my players to dress appropriately, I have to dress appropriately. If I want my players to be fit, I've got to be fit. And I can't have them doing fitness exercises while I'm there eating a cheeseburger. I have to show them the way. I've got to be there with them. I've got to lead by example.